So before we dive into this week's episode, I want to acknowledge the fact that this episode was pre-recorded. It's set to schedule this week. We do have a sponsor, so we just kind of left it to go live. But next week, we'll be having a discussion all about race, police brutality, intersectionality, white privilege, and it's something that's happening in the world right now in social media. And it's not just because it's trendy, it's important, and it's something that we really want to talk about. It's something that we obviously all have experience in, and it's something that we should speak about because you should use your voice, you should use your platform, and now is not a time to be silent. And so we're going to have that discussion for next week's podcast episode, but this one was pre-recorded, so we are leaving this here. Welcome to today's episode of Between Neens and Deens. My name is Nina, and I'm joined by my best friend, partner, and baby daddy, Dayon.
And together, we're a couple of 20-something-year-olds just trying to navigate this whole first-time parenting thing.
So we're laying it all out there and talking about all the things you wish your parents told you about love, sex, and happiness. So this is part 2 of our moving in together. It's mostly going to be a Q&A, but we're just going to dive right into it. We moved in together, and I would say the first challenge was trying to decorate together. It is so not easy trying to combine like two aesthetics.
I remember going to Winners all the time and like buying the wackest things, but then like we just constantly had to like buy and return because like
he would send me these photos and I was just like, absolutely not. Like I know he was just trying to fill the space because there's nothing, and it's like
it's tough when it's empty.
Yeah, like it seems so big and you're like, oh my god, all the possibilities. But you should try and not just fill it with whatever because you just want it to be full. If you can, take your time with it and like actually buy pieces that you kind of want to curate into like a space, because when we actually took our time and not rush into it, then the pieces all came together and we actually had an aesthetic going. But we did kind of rush and buy things that really like neither of us really liked, and then we ended up having to sell it later or return it. So I mean, also if you're gonna buy stuff, buy it from a place where you can return it, because that's gonna be way more clutch than being stuck with something and trying to flip it on Facebook Marketplace.
I remember the first thing that I bought was like McDonald's glassware, and that was so clutch.
And like that's not even furniture.
But you know, you got to drink out of something.
That's true.
And it kind of like shifted our like aesthetic, or it kind of like paved the way for like the cartoon vibes that we wanted. We wanted a little bit of that nostalgia feel to it, so it kind of helped.
Okay, like that's the thing that you have to realize, is that neither of us had this aesthetic in mind. Like if you look at our apartment tour on YouTube, like it's very colorful, it's kind of cartoony, and we didn't go into curating our apartment with that vision in mind. It was really just us shopping together and being like, do you like this? Do you like this? And for me personally, I feel like I have more of that bohemian kind of pastel pink, a little more girly feminine vibe, and like that's how I wanted to decorate. And I feel like you wanted things to be like clean and sharp and like black, and I like didn't want anything that was black in our home. And so we kind of settled on, we both like this like pop art color cartoon aesthetic. So it's really not easy to cater to both people, and I feel like usually what ends up happening is one person is just way more dominant and is like, no, this is the aesthetic we're going for, and the other person is just like, okay, I'm here.
No, see, yeah, but that's the thing, we were able to kind of like veto certain things and like have a compromise and like actually build our home together.
Which is surprising to me.
Yeah,
I didn't think we'd be able to do that.
It came together in a way that was interesting because there are some like feminine touches to it and like some bohemian vibes to it, but then there's a lot of that like kind of hype beast like colors and like pop art, like Warhol type feels, you know?
Yeah, we made our own aesthetic.
Definitely. And like that came out to like even like reaching out to our friends for art, and predominantly it was like people that I knew through like going to graphic design school and stuff.
Local artists,
yeah,
a lot of their stuff
that have like that like really colorful style, and it worked out. I think another thing that really influenced our decorating process was in the same time we were working on Saturday morning cereal. And we like started bringing in a bunch of like cartoon nostalgia, and then it just worked for like our apartment as well.
But to be fair, the pop-up did end up just living in our home. It
did live with us, yeah.
So like you can't really say that was decor because it was literally just the pop-up. But
some of it is still with us today.
Yeah. So I would say for those of you that were asking where we bought our furniture and stuff, a lot of it is thrifted. A lot of it is Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, because you can find some really great used furniture. Like we got our couch from Craigslist, our big orange couch, the one that everyone loves. We got our circular dining table off of Craigslist. You can get a lot of stuff on the low, especially IKEA stuff. So if you go to IKEA and you know what you want, just go into Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist and type that in, and you can probably get it for a lot cheaper. I would definitely recommend that. It'll save you a lot of money. And if you're in Canada, or even if you're not, like I would recommend going to places like Winners, Marshalls. They have so much like home stuff, and you can just buy a bunch of stuff, try out the aesthetic, and if you don't like it, then you can obviously return it with your receipt, and that way you can kind of test out like, okay, like is this a color that we're going for, a vibe that we're going for.
And that really worked well when it was like the little things that you need, like the essentials for like the kitchen and things like that.
Yeah.
And for me, I personally like went into Value Village and Salvation Army nearly every day, and like I like first thing I go to is like to the mugs and the glassware, and then the furniture, and just like try and find things that are interesting and different that could work in our apartment. And that was like really fun for me to like constantly do that. And obviously there were a few times where it was like a miss, and then we'd have to be like, okay, we have to get rid of this because it just doesn't work. But it was just fun to like try and like experiment.
It was really fun to,
Yeah,
like,
it was super fun. And still to this day, like we add and remove things from our home. So constantly, yeah.
But this is a good time to move into your guys' questions, and you asked a lot of really good ones. The one question that I got a lot was about finances. So how we split rent, how we split groceries, furniture, all of it. So with rent, we just did it straight down the middle. For us, we felt that like we should both be working and carrying equal weight. Like we are both living in this apartment. It's both mine and yours. And so we just felt that it was easiest to split it down the middle. I know that some people do it equitably. So like if you were making far more money than I was, and maybe like I was a student, then we might figure out something to do that like maybe you would pay more and I would pay less based on how much money we're making. But I think because you also didn't have a job going into us moving in together, then we just found that it was best to be like, we both decided to do this, and so we're both going to carry our own weight.
Yeah, we split like everything. Groceries, food, everything.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to keep track of the groceries and the furniture, I would say, because like with rent, obviously the money would just come out of Dan's account. So every single month, at the end of the month, I would just send him my half, and that's just how we did it. And with groceries and furniture, we used a website called Splitwise, and it was honestly a good website, and I believe they have an app as well, but we mostly just used it on desktop, and we kept all the receipts. We would import it in there, and we would just make sure that we were each spending the same amount of money on each thing. But it just like got so tedious to do, and it felt so nitpicky to be like, I spent like $20 on groceries this day, and like did you spend like $30 here, and like it got to be so stressful, I feel like.
And then there was times too where it was like, is this a day-on expense?
Oh my god, yeah.
Expense?
And like Dan would buy like all this candy and like soda, and I'm like, I'm not paying for that. Like that, I'm not eating or drinking any of that, so I don't want that to be a part of like the house expense.
Times, eh?
Yeah, so like we argued about it a lot, and at the end we kind of just stopped doing it, and we kind of just did like essentially an honor system where it was like, okay, like you'll pay for groceries this time, I'll pay for it next time, and we just kind of assume that it's gonna equal out.
I think it fell apart when we went on vacation.
Yeah, when we go, because we would have like a house fund, we'd have a vacation fund, a furniture fund. Like it was just too much, you know, and it's so much added stress, and it's, you have to keep all your receipts, and then you have to import it into this thing, and it's nice because it calculates it for you. I would say that if you have roommates, like if you're not actually living together, if you have roommates where you do want to split things, like it honestly is great, because I did that with my roommates in the past and my friends when we would go on vacation. But I think when you're in a relationship, unless you do still want to have that situation, if you just want it to kind of be equal, you could just kind of say, I'll pay for groceries this time, you pay for it next time, and just hope that it eventually evens out. But yeah, it just felt so tedious to do after a long period of time. But we did do it for a long period of time.
We did, yeah.
And it definitely did cause like some, I wouldn't say arguments, but it would start some disagreements. Yeah.
But now we're in a completely different phase.
Now it's really different. Now, I mean, I'm pretty much the sole breadwinner, and you work essentially with me, for me. And so, I mean, I just kind of pay for everything. But that's a story for another time. Because how we got from where we were to where we are now is such a long journey.
But my credit card is the family credit card, which means we buy things like groceries and family related stuff on my credit card. And
well, it's
then,
for accounting purposes. It makes
sense.
But
then you pay me anyway, so my paychecks come from you.
I mean, unless you have a situation like ours where one person works for the other person, which gets so messy. Like, this is a whole podcast in and of itself. And we're still working it out, then I wouldn't recommend what we're doing now. I would try and split it equally if you can.
Definitely in the beginning.
Yeah. And we did also get questions about how much you should save up before moving out. We did talk about this in our last podcast, but I had mentioned that I'd saved up $8,000 and I blew through that so quickly. Like, I mean, you have to think about when you're moving out, it's not just rent. So like our rent was $1,375, so let's just say $1,400. And then that's not including the deposit that you make when you first move in. So that's half a month's rent. So if you just think about right when you move in, what you owe is the first month's rent and the deposit. And then you have to furnish your place. If it's not furnished, you have to obviously eat. And you shouldn't move into a place just having saved enough for that first month, because you will be absolutely fucked for the next month. And so I would recommend that if you kind of know like how much you are willing to spend on an apartment, or what your half of the rent would be, then budget at least, honestly, to be safe, like 4 to 6 months, because you want to be able to have money in that period of time, and you never know what's going to happen, and you really don't want to be living like month to month if you can avoid it, because not paying rent sucks, because you can get kicked out, and that sucks.
I took a different approach because I didn't really have anything saved. I just kind of jumped in because I knew that's what I wanted to do. And like furnishing was so expensive. Like we blew so much money on all of that.
Well, and you think about like how much a mattress costs.
Yeah,
so
you got
much
like
money.
It's like the bigger things, right? Like mattress, sofa,
couch,
like TV if you want one, and like all those things. And then like the first few months, like I basically couldn't pay off my credit card, and I would just keep hoping that like if I work more, I'll be able to do it. And at the end, I was able to, but it took time to get there.
Yeah, don't do what Dan did.
Don't do what I did, because it just is added stress. But basically, I picked up like three different jobs, and I was doing them all in the same time, where like some days you couldn't even see me because I was constantly working, but like I had to pay off like my overdue debts to the credit card. And it wasn't like crazy overdue, but it was like it would be better if you had it was debt. Like it was like $2,000 like that. It was overdue to the credit card. So I was like, yeah, you should probably at least have that in the bank for like a backup. Because,
for me, like I kind of just assumed that if I pushed you to do this and for us to move in together, then you would have that fire under your ass to like get, you know, your shit together and make money and be able to pay for it. And I mean, you kind of did. You did end up going into debt because we did everything equally. Like if we'd done things equitably, I technically had more money, so then I would have paid slightly more. But I personally
split everything down the middle.
I didn't feel like I was like, we're equal partners, and I am not gonna get myself into a situation where I am paying for your rent, or that you think, oh well, like it's okay because she's paying like most of this month's rent, and so that's just the way it's gonna be. I was like, no, like you need that fire under your ass to like get your shit together, and it kind of worked.
Yeah, well, it's just like I owed my credit card, and I was like, all right, I need to hustle, because like every month is gonna be like
you did
a
work
fee.
a lot. Yeah,
so I was like, once I pay this off, I'll be good, and trying to get more tips, trying to get more money coming in, you know, so
you
I
do
can
what
pay
you gotta
it off,
do.
yeah.
But I mean, okay, so from your perspective, I guess because I've lived alone before, I've lived with roommates, and I kind of already knew like how amazing it is to live by yourself. Like, was it worth it? As much as you struggled financially to make it work, was it worth it to move out of your parents' place and have our own place together?
No doubt. It was like 100% like was worth it, because living with my parents was, love my parents, but I love them, but nah, that wasn't working for me. It was like, it was just so tough. You couldn't make your own like real, like, I mean, you have your room, but like you can't really have your own space, your own
aesthetic
like,
is confined to
time.
one small area.
Exactly. And like I felt like this was just better for like my mental too, because like I was able to like relax and like even get distracted on my own, and then like realize, all right, like you're fully responsible for yourself. And I'm like, all right, I need to work, I need to make money, I need to do something
to grow.
Yeah, 100%.
Grow the fuck up.
Yeah. So I don't regret it whatsoever. I mean, I don't even remember working that hard to pay off those, like, to pay off what I had to, and I don't really care about, like, the money that came out of the account every month for rent and all those things, because it's worth it, like 100%.
Yeah.
Especially living with somebody you love.
Oh, sugar. Okay, next question is, this one's a good one, and I never would have even thought to talk about this, but did moving in together affect our sex life? Did we have less sex? And now that I think about it, we did, but I'm not going to say that it's like a direct correlation. You know, like if you're looking at a graph, it's not that moving in somehow made the sex decrease in amount. Like,
so here's what I think is the difference. So you lived on your own when we met.
Yes.
So, but if we both live with our parents, I can see that if we finally move out into a home together, we would have more sex.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, it depends. Yeah.
But I think because you were living in a basement suite, we did not...
With roommates,
yeah. We did not care, and we just...
And your parents are also, like, not weird about
they were super chill. So like,
if I was living in my parents' house, though, hell no.
Yeah, I think what it is, we had the most sex in the beginning relationship because like it was so exciting, and like that's what it was. And then, not saying that it's like less, it is very exciting now. It's just there's more layers to our relationship that like.
Well, you have more responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
So when we moved in together, obviously, like, right when we moved in together, like, I had just moved back here. Like, we did have, I would say, a lot of sex. But I think that as, you know, arguments would arise about who's gonna clean this, and we'll get into all of this. We'll get into, like, how we divvied up chores and what we actually argued about. But the more stress that we encountered, and, like, with you having to take, like, 3 jobs to, like, make it happen, like, we had a lot more. Yeah. Like, you were more tired, and we had a lot more arguments. Mm-hmm. And for me, like, that's the direct correlation to us having less sex, because I don't want to be having sex if I'm upset with you, if I'm holding resentment towards you, if I'm like, why the fuck are you, like, not carrying your weight around here? Like, I don't feel like having sex with somebody when that's how I'm feeling. And so I wouldn't say that it's you move out and then you have less sex. I think it's that we had a lot more issues that arose in our relationship, just more challenges. It's not that it wasn't the right decision to move out. It was just that, you know, you're spending a lot more time together. It's a lot more to navigate. And so we ended up just spending a lot more time and energy on that than we did on sex. Yeah,
I mean, now that I think of it, like, when we met, we were just straight up rabbits. So, like...
Yeah, because when you first start dating, like, it's
that excitement.
It's
like,
the
we're
excitement.
getting
I was
to
also,
know
like,
each other.
in college, like, a lot less stress. Like, I was paying rent, but it was a lot less rent at that time. And you just have... I think that when you have more responsibilities, you just have to focus your energy on that. Mm-hmm. And more power to you. If you can go through all of that and also your sex life is on point, like, more power to you. But I am not that kind of person. Stress just takes over my mind, and so I can't let go.
Yeah, but don't get us wrong, like, our sex life was there and it was alive and it was great. The only thing is it wasn't, like, as much as it, because, like, when, like, just to clarify too, like, when we met, it was literally, like, a few times every single day.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was like me going, like, me is like, I'm running late for work. And then,
it was literally like constant sex. It went from constant sex to, like, frequent sex is what I would say. Yeah. And then, I mean, obviously now I'm pregnant, so it's been minimal.
Right now it's been minimal, and this is different for us. I think, like, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother ball game.
We could do a whole podcast just about our sex life. That will be a juicy one for you guys. Okay, the next question is our parents' reactions. I got a lot of questions from, I believe, my fellow Asians out there that have stricter parents. And honestly, I would say because I did move away from home, my parents had to kind of let go of their worries and fears and trying to control aspects of my life when I moved away, because I'm literally in another country. And I mean, I do also say that, but there are people that I went to college with where literally their parents would call them every single day. Like, their moms would call them every single day and ask them, like, about their life, what they're doing. They know where they are constantly, have their location. Like, their moms were so involved in their life, even though they were so far away. So I guess that's not an excuse, but I think for my parents, they were like, she's in Canada now, she's an adult, we can't stop her if she wants to do certain things. And so for me, I kind of just inform my parents when I'm gonna do something, and they usually just kind of have to be okay with it. I know that's really non-traditional, and that's not at all what I expected when I was growing up. Like, my parents were really strict, and I always thought that I would have the kind of relationship with them where I would always have to ask for their permission. But I think that over time, they just came to realize that I am a responsible adult. And I was like, I can afford this. I've done my research. I'm moving in with someone that you've met, that you love, and that, you know, like, they know Dayon. They trust him. Like, he's not like some random sketchy person. And they still don't really know much about his finances. So will he maybe not be able to make rent and leave me like high and dry? Maybe. They don't know that. And I think my mom did have some concerns about that. And I don't blame her, because even though I trusted you, like, there is still that possibility that you could have done that. And I think that's a risk you're willing to take when you do decide to move in with somebody. As much as you love them and as much as you know them, you really don't know kind of until you're in that situation how somebody's going to react. And if you are going to have to front them rent money, which was like my main concern. So with my parents, it was really just a matter of, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I want to do. And they really didn't mind. And I think it's also because my parents, they got married really young. They got married when my mom was 20, and then they bounced around America living in different cities when they were like a young married couple. And my dad always kind of wanted that for me, like to kind of just live in different places and explore different places. And so I think for him, it wasn't so foreign of an idea to be this age and to be living with a partner. And I don't think that they are really the type to be like, you need to be married before you can do these things, because they never really put that on me. So I'm sorry, I don't have a ton of great advice for you on how to talk to your parents if they are really strict and not wanting you to do certain things. But I think the best thing that you can do is to show them that you're a responsible adult. And sometimes you do just kind of have to push people to allow them to grow. With my parents, and again, this could be a whole other podcast, but throughout all of my teenage years, I just kept doing things to push them a little bit more and more and more until they were forced to grow and like realize that I am growing up and that they can't control every single thing that I do, because they went from being really strict to being not very strict at all.
My parents kind of were trying to scare me about moving out, because traditionally in Serbian culture, you stay there up until you get married. And so I guess like because we were like pretty new into our relationship as well, but they still did trust you and trust us, but I don't think that they were like ready to see me leave quite yet. And but I just had to like let them know that that was the move that I needed to do for myself, and that was something that I was thinking about for some time. And yeah, just it felt right for me. And I think they tried to scare me, but it wasn't like in any way where they gonna stop me, because like at that point we were adults, and there's like how can you really...
Yeah, I think you have to just pick your battles. Like, you know your parents better than anybody, and like if they are the type to be like, you need to get married before you move out, and that's something that's really important to them, like you have to just gauge your relationship to them and whether or not it's worth it. And so obviously for our parents, we knew that, like for yours, I guess, like there might be some resistance, but they would come around.
Yeah.
And so like I think that if that's the case with your parents, then I would take that leap. And you know, like you never know until you try it. But also, I'm a firm believer that you have to throw yourself off the cliff and trust that you're going to catch yourself.
Something I tell my parents is, if you wanted me to be more traditional, then you should have raised me back home. Like, the moment you raised me in Canada, I'm a Canadian, so I'm going to do Canadian-like things.
No, but there are people in Canada that are Canadian that really don't be...
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if they try to push, like, certain traditions and, like, cultures on me, like, I respect the culture, but if there's certain things I want to do, it's like, I'm a product of, like, where I grew up. So, you know what I mean?
And it is a lot more common here to not get married and move in together.
And that's the thing. Like, we have a baby and we're not married. You know what I mean? Like, those are things that I have to tell them the same thing.
Pushing all the boundaries.
I literally have to tell them the same thing. I'm like, I grew up here. Like, it's 2020. It's a whole different time. And it's like, they kind of just have to live with it, because
that is true. Because, yeah, that's the thing, is that, like, culturally, I mean, for me, I grew up American, and my parents culturally are Vietnamese, and it's very different. The way that they grew up is very different from the way that I grew up. And I think to a certain extent, like, your parents are just gonna have to realize that. It just is so unfortunate, because like your like relationships with, I think, immigrant parents it's so hard and it's so nuanced, because like your lived experiences are so different, so you do have to meet them halfway. You know, like you do have to realize that this is coming from somewhere, you know, like this is coming from their own experience, and they're not really just doing it because they want to like oppress you, you know, like they're doing it because like that's what they know.
Yeah.
And so I think if that's the case, then it's a lot easier to reason with your parents than to like argue and like just butt heads. And that's something I had to learn really early on. And I used to do that all the time. Like my parents would tell me no, and I would just like resist and just argue. But if I can provide them with reason, and if I can say like, hey, like I totally understand your concerns and like I see where you're coming from, then it would make them a lot more at ease, because they were like, okay, she actually is considering how we feel. Whereas usually when you're just fighting, it's kind of just like, I'm out here for me and I don't care about how you feel.
Especially if you sound like an adult and they know that like, okay, she's responsible now.
Yeah, it took a lot. It took a lot for my parents to see me as a responsible person, I think.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes time to like get out of that. And like if anyone is going through like certain situations where they feel like their parents are very strict on them, it might just be like because you may be a little bit too young right now, and maybe they do have this feeling that you might not be ready, or you know, feel it out, because every situation is so different. Like, because like for us, like we knew that the certain decisions that we would make, maybe it wouldn't make our parents like 100% happy, but in the same time it wouldn't ruin our relationship with them. Like we would still have a very strong bond with them and still be able to, you know, communicate with them and whatever. But I know certain situations, maybe with some people, if they like do something that's against what they want, then like if you lose like ties with your family, that's a big thing to consider. And that's a big thing to really like sit down and think about and talk about.
I feel like if anything, my mom just didn't want to be financially responsible for me anymore. So I was like, yo, like I am financially independent and this is what I'm doing. So she's like, more power to you.
And that's the thing. Like, it didn't affect your guys' relationship at all.
No, all. No, not at all. I think my dad wanted me to stay in San Francisco, but I couldn't have done that. It's too expensive. It's expensive in Vancouver, but I mean, it's not San Francisco expensive.
San Francisco is even more. So I would say this is a good time to plug Policy Genius. If you guys are looking to get some life insurance, super important, especially with everything that's going on right now. We need to make sure that our child is fully taken care of in the case that we do pass away.
It's anybody that depends on your income. Like, you should definitely look into it. So whether that's like your parents, your grandparents, your children. And if you don't know, Policy Genius is an insurance marketplace. So it basically keeps track of all the changes in the market so you don't have to. So it does all the hard work, finds you the best price, and you could save up to $1,500 just by using Policy Genius, and it's free. So I would definitely go check it out. It compares all the quotes. So you literally don't have to do anything besides just use the website.
You know how expensive a funeral is?
Yeah.
And how expensive, like, somebody got to pay your taxes, somebody got to, you know what I mean? Like, and all like, these things. And why put that burden on your family members, you know? And your family members, your partner, your children, whatever it may be.
So if you're one of the many people that are looking for life insurance, make sure that you head to policygenius.com. They handle everything for you and they'll get you protected, and it's just one less thing that you have to worry about.
So jumping back into these questions.
The next question is about divvying up chores. So this one is a hot topic because we argued a lot about chores.
Until we got into the groove of it.
Well, yeah, we don't argue as much now. Now I'm just more like, can you please just go do this? But I think the biggest, not mistake, but the biggest thing here is the fact that I lived with roommates before, I lived by myself before, and you had never lived with anyone but your parents before. That, I think, was the biggest distinction for the both of us. Because I came from a place, and I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't always the best roommate. There are a lot of times where I didn't clean up after myself, and my roommates didn't like that, and they would vocalize it with me. And I'm very well aware of that, but I tried, and I'm aware that when you're living together with somebody, you need to carry your weight. And so at least, like, I would keep my space clean and, like, attempt to keep communal spaces clean. And then when I was living alone, I did everything, you know? Like, I had to do all the dishes, vacuum, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I think for me, what I learned when I was living alone is that I don't mind cleaning, tidying, doing household things when it's my space. But for some reason, when it's communal, I just feel like it's not worth it because someone else is going to make it messy and I have no control over that. And so I like to have control over my spaces.
And you're a control freak.
Yeah, I'm a huge control freak. And so then when it comes to moving in with somebody that you're in a relationship, that's where it gets muddled, because all of it is my space, but it's also all of it is your space. And I have control and I also don't have control. And
It's our space.
It's our space, yeah. And I just wasn't used to that concept. And also you coming from a place where, you know, if you make a communal space messy, your mom is going to clean it up. You know, and like the only thing that you really have to keep clean is your bedroom.
That's the European ways, man. You know, they raise their boys as boys, like.
And that's what's wrong with it.
It is.
Know?
I know, and that's I didn't realize that until later, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like we raise girls to be so, you know, like responsible, and especially for me, like my mom was always like, you need to learn how to cook and clean and all these things that make a good wife, and I was always so resistant to it, but I did learn those things.
My parents got at us for like our room, but they never made us like clean the dishes. They never made us cook food or anything like that. So
yeah. So I was like, you need to carry your weight. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see it at all. Like we would literally have people over, and then the next morning Dan would go to work and I'm working from home, but there's just cans everywhere. Like it's so messy. Like I have to clean.
Parties, though.
Yeah, okay. Like the parties were fun, but then I would have to clean up everything, and then you'd come home and you're tired. And I'm like, okay, but I didn't even get to work today because the whole day I had to clean up because I can't work in an environment like this. And it was so stressful for me because I just felt like I was carrying all of this weight in like cleaning and tidying and like doing errands and stuff like, and I couldn't take it because I was like, you're not seeing that by you not carrying your weight that you're putting all of it on me. And it's not just the physicality of it, it's also the mental load. It's the fact that I have to think about, well, we haven't done laundry yet, we need to go do laundry, you know. And then you're like, oh well, I'll do it if you tell me to. But the thing is, you're telling me, you're telling me that I have to be the manager of the house and then divvy up chores to you. And that was very frustrating to me as well, because I was like, we should be equal in this, you know?
But that's the thing. That's like something that I like fail to understand, because like if you told me to do something, I'd be like, okay, like I can do it and I'll do it.
Okay, but then the thing is also I should say that he a lot of times wouldn't do it. He says it like
I would wait a little bit.
Yeah, you like to wait like a week and let it build up. But I'm like, I want general cleanliness at all times.
So you know what? I feel like that's also, like, I'm sure that there's some people that are similar to me, but I feel like if I do start to clean something, I know that I'm gonna like clean it to a T and start like.
I can verify he does do that.
Yeah, and like if I like, and that's the thing, like I'll keep a mess because I know like, all right, if I'm gonna involve myself in cleaning that, this is gonna be a whole day thing. Yeah. Because like if I have a few clothes on a chair and I need to fold it and put it away, I'm gonna end up unfolding and refolding everything that's in the closet.
It is the worst
because it needs to be like clean to a T if I'm gonna do it. And that's the thing, like with the dishes, it takes me a long time, and it's like I like everything to be like in a certain order, and it's so weird, but like, so that's why like sometimes I let it build up, but I mean that's not the right way to do it. But it's just like I feel like it's something about like in my mental, like it's like it's satisfying in a sense to like do that. But I know that it's extremely tough for you to live in a mess. So, and it is for me as well. So
we are better at it now. I mean, our situation has changed a lot now, and now we have a child. So like blah blah blah, everything's different. But like,
how do we divvy up the chores? Like I think in the beginning it was a little bit more up in the air, and then it slowly starts getting refined. And I think now it's like we have this agreement where you'll do the cooking, I'll do all the cleaning. And
it was like that even when we first moved in, though. It was just you wouldn't clean. And then I remember months into us moving in together, and it's all built up where, you know, like we didn't really set out these expectations to begin with, because I just kind of assumed that we would both clean. And so it's like all this built up, pent up like anger about Dayan not cleaning. And then it literally gets to the point where our biggest arguments were because I just want to see you fucking pick up the vacuum without me telling you to and vacuum. And he's like, well, I never see you vacuum. I'm like, cause you're at work. And then he's like, oh, well, why don't you do it now? I'm like, cause I'm waiting for you to do it. I'm literally leaving it messy, and I'm looking at all these little like dust bunnies in the corner, and I'm like, does he see these? Like, do you even register? Like, do you want to live in this dirty mess? And like, it was so infuriating to me because I was just waiting for you to do it. And I told you repeatedly that I wanted you to vacuum. And even though you knew, you still wouldn't do it. And it was very odd. And I think like when we were fighting, it was pretty much always about that. It was always about vacuuming, responsibilities. And for me, like, it wasn't just doing the chores. To me, it was about respect. You know, it was respect for my time, and it was respect for all the things that I do. And I was like, if you're not carrying your weight, then you're just telling me straight up that, like, you don't give a fuck. You know? So, like, for me, it was bigger than that. It got bigger than that, to the point where I was like, I am leaving. Like, I'm not doing this anymore just because of cleaning responsibility. Because I was like, you know, like, what's the future? You know, like, we're going to have a kid together. And what's it going to be? Like, I'm going to do everything? Like, I'm going to delegate to you? Like, no, I don't think so. So I was like, we need to have these fundamental, like, building blocks, essentially. Yeah. So now, like, when we do have a child together, like, yeah, every now and then I do have to tell you to do things, but it's a lot better. Yeah. It's a lot better than what it was.
It's unfortunate that it had to reach those certain boiling points, because there were some arguments. Like, that's not a lie. Like, there were some arguments where you were like, I'm literally going to leave if you can't do this. And
yeah, and is literally over vacuuming. Yeah. And I was like,
it's unfortunate that, like, yeah, I mean,
letting it get to this point.
And that's the thing, like, because I, like, and the arguments would escalate, because I would be like, you seriously going to leave me over some, like, vacuuming?
And I was like, absolutely, I will not stand for this. Yeah. Like, it's an equal
And that's the thing,
because
then I would get defensive, too, because I'd be like, yo, if you tell me to do it, I'm going to do it. And then, like, there's, like, certain things, like, where, like, the arguments would just keep progressing and escalating.
But you just didn't understand. Like, it's the mental load. Like, I already have so much to think about, you know? Like, we both have jobs and lives.
Yeah, but right now I'm crushing it. I'm changing the diapers, burping the baby. I did some
this thing do really, like, it really does pile up, but we're a lot better at divvying up. You just have to have the conversations. And, like, if it's really bothering you, like, that's the thing for me. Like, I didn't realize how much it was bothering me, how much I had it pent up inside of me, until I was literally crying and screaming about vacuuming. And it's like, how does it get to that point? You know? And, like, even though I knew from the beginning, like, I'd be like, ooh, I don't know, like, maybe, like, he should be contributing, like, I shouldn't be doing all this. I would just kind of keep it to myself and hope that he would change for some reason. But you have to vocalize, you know, like, you need to vocalize what your expectations are, because your partner can't know that. And you don't know what your starting point is. You know?
Usually after the arguments, once things settled, the communication was a little bit more clear, and then we were able to figure things out.
But also, what you should realize is that it's not just going to take one argument. My favorite...
Oh, it'll take a few, for
sure.
Favorite
is when we would argue, and then I'm like, I'm fucking leaving you. And he was like, no. Fuck that guy. I hate him. You're never seeing him again. He's dead to me. And he's like, fuck that old Dayon.
I have a few different versions of myself that are dead and gone.
And and he would just be so dramatic, and then he would, like, frantically clean, like, plug in the vacuum, do all the dishes, and, like, prove to me that he can do it. And I'm like, and, you know, like, the first couple times I'm like, wow, he's changed. And of course you haven't. And it's just time and time again where we just need to have the same conversations over and over again.
Breaking habits are tough.
I know, it's hard. They're
habits. They're bad habits at the end of the day, too.
Well, that's why, like, now I can laugh about it. But then it was really just, like, it gets to the point now where I'm like, you are making me incredibly stressed and very upset. And I don't want to be this person. And I don't need you to just apologize and frantically clean. I need you to do it regularly.
I'm sweating right now just thinking about all that. Those are some crazy times.
It was, but I mean, yeah, but we had to go through it.
Yeah, it got us.
We need to raise our boys better. That's the thing.
Like, oh yeah, but that's the thing. Like, through communication, you're able to solve those issues slowly, but you're able to solve them. It just takes time.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is about personal space. How do we have our own space when we're living together? How do we carve that time for ourselves and just, like, the actual physical space?
So for me, I personally would just go out with friends or go play basketball. That's, like, the biggest thing.
To be fair, though, like, it's pretty rare that you go out with friends just by yourself. We're pretty much always together.
We are, yeah. And that's the thing, because we love each other's company.
We do, but we also have, like, friends that are together. So I feel like going out with friends. Yeah, we have joint friends. So, like, I feel like going out with friends isn't usually how we take space. For me, it was, like, when you were working, that's when I would take my space. And, like, I would be working, to be fair. But I just really like doing errands by myself. I like taking myself out to restaurants. I fucking love grocery shopping. So, like, for me, like, that's...
So interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But it's, like, for me, like, that's my time to be, like, slow and present, you know? Because all I'm thinking about is, like, what's right in front of me. And I think like that's also why I love to cook. So like for me, like those are kind of times that I can like carve out for myself, as weird and lame as those activities are. But to be fair, like when we're in our apartment, like we love being together. So I don't really think that there was ever a time where, like, we're also just not the type of people where we kind of need the physical space every once in a while. Like, I would get it just from him working and me being somewhere else. And, like, that was enough for me. But I can see how if you are the type of people that, like, need to have your own space, like, within your own home, then you would just, you know, go to the living room and go to the bedroom. And
yeah, we do subtly take space from each other. I think I tend to find space for myself is when you go to sleep. You tend to go to sleep like a lot earlier than I do. But I'm in the living room till like 1 to 2 a.m. either just like watching things
and
on YouTube.
sometimes I wake
or
up
just,
early, and then that's when I journal.
Yeah, so then like technically, yeah, we're alone. You take your space when your partner is sleeping. That's that's the
Don't
best.
have the same sleep schedule.
Yeah,
that's how
you carve your space when they're snoring.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me also, like, I would go out to play basketball or I would shop, and like going to Value Village and like really taking my time there was like a good way for me to just like take my own space, because I get to fully relax in that way and take space for myself. And of course basketball is just like my greatest release of like just like physical exertion and just like hanging out with a bunch of people. So
I think it's pretty easy to take space, honestly. I mean, we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and like if we just didn't want to be around each other, you just leave and go to another part of the apartment.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't think that we ever took space in where we were like, it was more of like, I need to take space and I need you to be aware of it. It was more just naturally us doing it, or like me going to take a bath, you know, like it was just us respecting that, like, you know, sometimes we're gonna be together and sometimes we're not.
Doors exist for a reason.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, yeah, you just go into the other room and then yeah, we would just leave each other to
I think the
for a
key
few
takeaway,
hours, you know, until like you come out for a glass of water and then like look at you and I'm like, we ready now?
Yeah.
To talk now.
But I think like the key takeaway from it is that you need to find somebody, ideally, that appreciates and needs space the same way that you do. I think it would make it easier. You know, like it's not necessary, but I mean, we've had friends in situations where one person really needs their own personal space, like a lot of it. You know, like even when you're in the same place, like you just need to be in a different room, and then their partner would need to be right next to them all the time.
Because I think for us, like, we really appreciate being together and we really love like spending as much time as we can together.
It would be really hard if I needed a lot of personal space and you were like, no, I need to be next to you all the time.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's why we work the way we do, and it's because none of us are like possessive over each other, or like feel like, oh, I'm not having enough time with you, or like things like that, or like I feel like I need space from you. We never really reach those certain points. It just happens so organically.
Yeah, wherever you can take space, I would say, if you're living together, take it.
Go to the bathroom, take a shower.
Take a nice long shower.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, did people think you were moving too fast, and how did you deal with it? I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
anybody
I
thinks.
did not care. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of people that did kind of think like, where did this come from? And this was really quick, but
it's also like,
but if you saw us too, like, that's the thing, like my parents, like, they knew that we got along really well, like from early on in our relationship. That's the thing
is also like, it's hard to say this because I really don't want to encourage you to, like, you know, not talk to people about things, especially if maybe you're in like a sketchy relationship and maybe one that's not great. But, you know, you're the best
We've
judge.
all been there, by the way.
Yeah, we've all been there. But I am the type to make decisions and then inform my friends. I don't generally ask my friends for their opinion. If I am, I'll explicitly ask the question, but usually it's like, hey, I'm moving in with Dayon. It's not, hey, should I move in with Dayon? Because for me, like, I would rather make that decision for myself. It's only affecting me, really, at the end of the day. I'm the only one that knows if it's the best decision for me. I'm the only one that's in a relationship with Dayon. And so, yeah, like, I don't want to encourage this if, you know, like, you're making some questionable choices. But if you yourself know that this is the right decision for you, you trust your partner, you guys are in, like, a great committed relationship, and you know that they're not going to bail on you for rent and things like that, then, like, you know, like, be able to trust yourself. you don't always need other people's approval, and sometimes you're not going to get it. And I don't think that you should make decisions based off of what other people would do in your situation, because they're not you. And I think
they're not
that,
in your situation.
Yeah, and it's like, I think that goes for like relationship advice in general, is that like they don't ever know what's going on between you and your partner, and they could never know. They could witness your relationship every single day and they still wouldn't know. And so like, yeah, you can still gather other people's opinions if you want, but really hold what you want in your gut above all else. You know, like I would say, yeah, if you have people that are questioning your decisions, if you yourself are questioning your decisions, then maybe listen to that.
Maybe it is too soon.
Yeah, maybe it is too soon. But if you know that it's right, then, you know, take that leap. Take that leap and see where it takes you.
Leap of faith.
But again, I don't want to say this and then have you guys get into some really sketchy situations.
And then end up in debt.
Be smart, please. So this kind of lends itself into the next question, which is generally like how much it costs to move out in Vancouver. And that's the thing, is that if it didn't cost so much to live here, I probably would have moved back to Vancouver by myself. Like, I wouldn't have like asked you to move out so quickly and like make a decision that you and your parents weren't fully comfortable with. But at the end of the day, it's very expensive to live here by yourself, and I was not trying to live with roommates, so I was like, let's live together, you know. So it's really expensive. Yeah, it worked out great, but it's very expensive. So I think that might be like a big push as to why people might move in together quicker, because you need a roommate or you need a partner, you know, because it's so expensive to live by yourself.
Should we give them like number amounts?
Well, I mean, so you knew that our 1-bedroom apartment
was $1,375,
so it's basically $1,400, and we're
and
living
standard is kind of like $1,500-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was in East Van. That was a great deal for a 1-bedroom apartment in East Van. And I was living in a basement suite in Kits before that, and I was paying $600, and I had one roommate. And so like basement suite is just like when you're like basement or garden level in the house. So that's kind of like a difference between living in a house and like an apartment. And then we're now living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and this one is really expensive. It is essentially $2,800. It's basically double what we were paying in East Van, but we're
downtown.
Yeah, we were downtown. We have an amazing view, and it's a 2-bedroom. So do with that what you will, but it's expensive. It's really, really expensive to live in Vancouver, and yeah, save up money before you move out.
Most places downtown are $1,600 plus. Actually, $1,600 is low. Most of them are like $2,000 plus.
Well, are you talking about 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom?
For a 2-bedroom. Or even 1-bedroom. It's just because like we're in an older building, it's a little bit less than other ones. But like all the newer buildings are quite expensive. But yeah, because like you're downtown, but that's like downtown in most cities, but Vancouver is quite expensive.
Next question is, this is a fun one. I don't even know what I would say to this, but what is your biggest pet peeve since moving in together?
I would say for me was trying to figure out a solution for you and you just not like receiving it. Like you will not take it. And I think...
Is this the shoebox situation?
This is numerous situations. No, yeah, I mean, shoebox I was trying to help organize all of your little knickknacks, and you came at me. I agree, the shoebox wasn't the best
He wanted to put a shoebox under the sink, and I was like, it literally closes, so I can't see what's in it. How is that a solution?
But see, that's the thing. The biggest pet peeve I would say is how you can't fold your clothes unless you can see it. Like, you're like, how am I supposed to figure out my outfit? Because, like, most drawers are, like, closed drawers. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you open the goddamn drawer. But for her, it's like, no, it has to be, like, out in the open so she can look at it.
I need to see it. Because I'm out of sight, out of mind. Like, I really don't know what I have in my closet.
I feel you, but it was just so frustrating trying to, like, figure out a solution.
Yeah, he would come up with solutions. I'm like, that's trash. I'm like, hey, B. No, okay, first of all, it starts with, hey, B, like, I don't really know what to do. And he's like, oh, okay, what about? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Trash. Hate it.
Not even that. You started attacking me. And that's the thing, like, with anything, when I'm like, oh, like, how about, what do you think if we, like, maybe put this here instead? And then you're like, that is disgusting. Absolutely not. Why would you ever do that? And then I'm like, let's just try it. And I finally convinced her to do it. And she's like, you know what? I don't hate that. Actually,
yeah, it's
great.
like a 50-50. Sometimes I hate it, and sometimes I'm like, yo, you know what?
That's my biggest pet peeve is I wish you
like how you think.
It's like, I wish that you were just more down to like
I feel like I'm more down
experiment
now.
with like our apartment and be like, oh,
That
you know
is
what?
not
Yeah,
true.
you know what I mean though, where it's like, okay, yeah, let's try and move that there. You know what I mean?
That
like,
is
maybe this
so
works.
not true. Okay, no.
B, how many times did I try and figure out different places to put the couch and the TV until we figured out the right way? But the whole time you were not down for it.
Okay, because he's making it seem like I'm no fun Nelly over here. But it's because I genuinely can visualize it. And to be fair, yes, we did move things around and we found a better place to set things up. But a lot of the suggestions you were giving me were trash.
Well, I mean, they can't all be fire, but they're suggestions.
No, but that's the thing is I can visualize it, and then when you say, okay, now how about this one, then I'm like, okay, like, let's do that one. But I'm not going to let you just move shit around until 3 a.m., like, it's just visualize it first. Visualize it first.
I feel you, but don't get mad at a dude who's brainstorming. Do you know what I mean?
Brainstorming is, that's what I'm saying. Brainstorming is okay. It's when you're actually moving things into every single different location. It is not necessary. Just use your imagination and you would know that it wouldn't work there.
Alright, so I guess is this a mutual pet peeve?
Yeah, I guess so. Like, yeah, I guess so. I don't know what my biggest pet peeve of yours would be. It probably would be the fact that when you do need to especially fold things in your closet, there will be like a laundry pile of maybe 5 shirts on the floor. And I'm like, can you please put those away? And he's like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then he finally gets to it. But he doesn't just put it away. He takes out all 50 shirts, refolds them, and then creates this huge pile on the floor. And then the mess is even bigger now. And then he puts it back in. It's gotta get worse
to get better.
Yeah, so that's my biggest pet peeve of you.
I got more, actually. Now they're all coming to me.
Okay. This is just a shit on Nina fest. Let's go.
I don't even know if you want this out in the public.
Okay, well, just say
But
it.
Nina's the type that if it's yellow, let it mellow. This girl does never flush. And I'm like, we have guests come over.
Because it saves water.
I get it. But it's also just like, before guests come through, like, just flush it. You know what I'm saying?
But I don't always know when people are coming through because you don't always tell me now, do you?
Yeah,
you just be having people over and I don't know that.
They're like, oh yeah, I just gotta go use the restroom.
To be fair, it is embarrassing for me because I'm like, B, did you flush the toilet before they got here?
And that's the thing, I always do it.
Okay, see, it's great that you're routine. But it saves water, B. I'm out here for the environment.
I get it. Also stains the toilet, but okay.
Well, okay, see, but that's the thing is that it's your job to clean. Yeah, it's your job to clean, so
that's why it's my
it
pet
doesn't
peeve.
bother me.
She's like, I don't have to clean it. I'm out here using that, like, scrubber thing. I'm the only one that has ever touched that.
I never touch it.
Exactly.
Okay, this is the thing, though. Like, as much as I shit on Dan for not doing chores or anything, like,
I do shit you don't see, bro.
Yeah, but that's the thing is my mother always told me that I would have to grow up to do all these things like cook and clean and, you know, like clean the bathroom. She would always complain about that. And to be fair, it sucks to clean the bathroom. That's why I never do it. But she would always tell me that I have to learn how to do these things. And I told her I am going to marry somebody that's going to do all those things for me, or I'm going to hire somebody. And she was like, oh, ha, 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 ha. Good luck. And guess what? I found somebody that will actually do all those things. Because, like, I cook and I carry the mental load. And now I make most of the money. And I found somebody.
I'm a slave to you now.
No, but it's like, you know, we have
the bathtub before the queen gets in.
But we have different roles now, you know? Like, we have different responsibilities.
And it works for us,
and
honestly.
You actually don't mind cleaning. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But
I love to clean because, like, I love when I, like, see it spotless.
Yeah.
After it's done.
But to be fair, that's the thing. Even if I do it, like, sometimes I try to help. I'll try to do the dishes sometimes. Yeah, and then he'll just redo it. I'll try to help him fold his clothes, and he'll just redo it. So, like, even if I try, like, he won't let me. The only annoying thing is that it happens on his timeline, which sometimes takes a long time. But he does do a really good job. I say it like you're not sitting here, but you do a really good job.
Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
Is that, like, perfectionism? You know how, like, perfectionists are actually bad?
Oh, that's
you know when they ask you, like, when you go for a job interview, they're like, what's your worst thing? And I'm like, oh, I'm a perfectionist.
Everybody says, I'm a perfectionist. Yeah, come up with something better.
Nah, you don't know a perfectionist until you see how I fold my closet.
Okay, so this is kind of related to, like, when we take space. And you kind of mentioned it, but I guess we can dive deeper into it. But, like, how do you deal with it when you can't escape when one person is like angry or grumpy, or and when you genuinely are like, I need space? Because we have gotten into fights where I'm like, get out of my face, like I don't want to see you, I don't want to be around you. And in those situations, I've gone for drives before, which is not always the safest thing to do when you're really angry, but sometimes like one of us will just leave.
Do you remember that time that I stepped in front of the car?
Yeah, we've had some really dramatic fights. There was one where I don't even remember what we were fighting about, but I got into my car and I was gonna go for a drive, and Daniel was like, "You can't go!" And he jumped in front of my car and like just stayed in front of my car,
and I sat on the hood.
Yeah, and I like couldn't drive away, and I was just bawling. I don't remember what that was.
But that's the thing.
But...
I'm like, you just can't be driving like crying like this. And like, and I was scared. I was genuinely scared. Like she's gonna get in an accident, and I'm like, I can't let her leave. So
I would say don't drive because that's not safe. But to be fair, like I have done, also where you just like lock yourself in your bedroom, and you just take space that way, or just like go for a walk. Like I think we've done that before, or I've done that before, where you just like go for a walk and just actually take space. And then usually when we're separated, that's when we'll text each other. Usually you'll be like, I can't believe you were such a fucking asshole. And I was like,
then we get into a conversation.
Yeah, it's always it's a conversation over text, and then we're usually arguing, and then eventually it'll be like, hey, I love you.
Yeah.
But it's usually Dayon being like, I can't believe you were such a dick. And I was like,
it's usually Nina.
Like, fuck you.
It's usually Nina storms off, and then I guess that's how I get my space, is that Nina stormed off on me. So, but like we're both upset, but I'm like, that's the thing. I rarely
usually
ever...
I'm being very rude and Dayon's being very defensive. That's
but I rarely ever get like super upset with you that I feel like I need to leave. It's usually you get really upset with me, I'm defensive, and I'm upset at like how rude you're being to me, and then you storm off and leave. So like I guess you have your personal space.
And then you say, I can't believe that you just did that.
Anyways, but then in the same time, I have my personal space, which is usually in the comfort of our home.
Yeah, and, usually I leave. Because to be fair, I'll be like, get out of... Like, yeah, when we're arguing, I'm like, get out of my face. I don't want to see you right now. Leave. And you won't leave. And so, like, I will leave. I will remove myself from this situation. So, yeah, either go to your bedroom...
But it's healthy, y'all, I swear.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is that, like, we fight... We fight a lot, and we don't as much now. But when we did first move in together, we fought a lot. There's just so many things about being in each other's space all the time. As much as we love each other so much and love spending time with each other, there's just so much about being in the same space and figuring out all of this all at once that, like, you're gonna fight. And if you're not fighting, then you are having just pent up anger and resentment, because there is stuff that you definitely disagree on.
It's not possible.
It's not possible. Like, even if it's not an argument, like, you can at least have the discussion about what you disagree about.
And I wouldn't change, like, any of our arguments for the world. Like, I think, like, as like, frustrating as some of them can get, like, we've learned so much from each of them. Yeah. And, like, our relationship grows from each and every single one of them. And we have, like, better understanding of each other. And, honestly, sometimes arguments are kind of fun.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they take a turn for the funny. But that's the thing, is that it's also, like, if you don't have this argument now, you're gonna have it in, like, 5-10 years, so you might as well have it now and grow from it, or like
the longer
figure it
you
out.
hold it, usually the worse it gets too.
It's like the vacuuming situation where I held on to it for so long and it got so much worse than it had to be. So the last question is, what is the best thing about living together?
Spending every single day with you.
Yeah, it is like,
we don't have to go, like, when you end a date, you're going home together. We're always together.
I mean, our relationship has grown so much since, like, moving in together. I don't know what it would be like if we never moved in together and we just continued dating, living in our respective homes. But yeah, I would say for me, it was also just, like, when I think back to when we first moved in together, like, having that, like, huge open space. I mean, it wasn't even that huge, but that huge open space to ourselves, and, like, the possibilities were endless, and we would just go shopping together. Like, we would figure out our aesthetic. Like, it was honestly so much fun. Like, that was probably, like, one of the funnest periods of my life that I can remember. And I just, like, was so optimistic about life and about opportunity, and it just really felt like the beginning of everything.
Yeah, of where we are now.
Yeah.
It's insane. Because, like, we, like, moving into an empty apartment is literally like looking at a blank canvas and like, how am I going to paint this? And it was just fun, that like painting with you, basically. So we were able to do whatever we wanted and like shop together and like
It was like a
just
fun
design
excuse
it.
to shop
Yeah,
too. Now I'm like, we don't need anything.
Yeah.
But
Now
then
it's
it was
we have
like,
too-
you need stuff.
But even then we got way too much. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like we kept doing it. We didn't want. I think it was like a rush, right? We didn't want that to
Yeah,
end,
we
so
didn't
we
want it
just
to
kept
end.
accumulating things, and then we realized. We actually realized when we moved into this apartment that we have way too much
Way
stuff.
too much stuff. But that's the thing too, is that it takes time.
And it was fun to sell things
Yeah.
too. Like to sell things with you was fun, and then like see things go away, and then we're like, oh, like we got rid of the couch or we got rid of this, and then able to like fill it in with something that's more efficient. So, yeah, I think like just like decorating with you and just spending time with you and just like cuddling up in our like couches and watching
like
shows.
having
and
your own space is really
having your own
so
space is
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah. Like it's like all of it is yours. Like I think when you're living in your parents' house, then you're just decorating your room, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's so your aesthetic, and it's so like you love your room, you know, because you curated it. But when you get to curate your kitchen and your bathroom and your living room, like it's so much fun. And
For me, like one of the biggest joys is waking up in the morning, grabbing my favorite mug, making a coffee, and it's like all my glassware is my glassware. You know what I mean? It's not like mixed in.
everything's the way that
'cause
you
when
like it.
Exactly, because when I was living with my parents, it was like I could do the same thing. They had a coffee machine too, but I
Yeah.
never wanted to do it because it's like it didn't bring me that same joy. Like just those little like things bring me a lot of joy. Like just our glassware. Like literally, I've mentioned our glassware a million
Yeah.
times in this podcast. Like it brings me so much joy, and just like seeing all the bright colors in our home, and that transcends from being in the bedroom to the living room and to the kitchen to the bathroom. Whereas like I think when you're in your parents' room or parents' home, it's like just your room.
Yeah.
That is like the way you want it. But when it's the whole home, it's just such an amazing feeling.
That's why I would say, like, as much as you can, save up as much money, because you absolutely don't need to, you know, buy all that stuff, like decorate like as much as we did. But when you do get to, it's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, like
once you put art on the walls,
Yeah.
once you have a few plants that you can take care of, it's just like
we
there's no
could have
better
done it
feeling.
bare bones, but I don't think it would have been as fun as like, let's buy like hella pillows and like what throw blankets do we want and what rug do we want, you know? Like you could absolutely do it, just get a mattress on the floor and like tough it out, eat ramen noodles. Like that could be like the vibe that you're going for, and like people absolutely do that, and it's absolutely possible as long as you and your partner are both comfortable with that. But whatever it is that you and your partner both want, like do it together, you know, like figure out like how do we want to do this, and you know, save up however much you need to either move into a place that you can fully decorate or move into a place where you can just like tough it out together, because whatever it is, like you're gonna get through it together and you'll be stronger for it.
So I think my happiest or my favorite thing about us moving out together is just being together.
Yeah.
Literally all the time, and just doing
That's it.
all of this together. Like that's end of the story.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good way to end this episode. I want to thank you guys for listening. Hope y'all been staying safe with everything going on.
You can follow us at Neens Deens, your girl Neens,
I'm Daniel's Day Off.
and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.